really, I want to focus on people that are grieving over lost loved ones. And I've done thousands of readings and met and talked to thousands of people. And it always seems to me that it comes down to they want to maintain contact with their loved ones and don't know how to do that. And so,
hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. I have Olson here, better known as Al from Canada. He's here to teach us how to connect with past loved ones. And I don't mean just in a professional way. I mean the average person who would like to establish a communication with their past loved one and have an ongoing relationship with that. So without further ado, here we are with Al from Canada. Here we are with Al Olson, a friend of mine. Canada. What part of Canada? What part of Canada?
Well, I'm in British Columbia, so on the West Coast, and I live in Victoria, British Columbia.
Oh, nice. I've been there.
Which just got voted the most beautiful small city in the world by Forbes magazine.
I believe it. They run a tight ship in Victoria as far as making sure everything is perfect. It's a real destination.
For sure. Well, yeah, my wife and I have retired, but in our retirement, we have a job where we do food and walking and history tours of BC. So our season's just come to the end now, but we've been very much involved in the tourism part of Victoria.
Oh, that's neat. Well, that's because you're a teacher. You were born and raised a teacher. You're very curiosity driven. And when I get into those phases, your phase is your whole life. When I get into a phase like that, it's like I'm learning this as if I'm going to teaching it, as if I'm going to be teaching this, and it becomes your own, and then your history goes into it, and your expertise goes into it, and then all of a sudden a book comes out. We do have a book here. Now this book is amazing, Mastering Mediumship from Beginner to Professional. I downloaded this book, audiobook, and I couldn't stop listening to it. I listened to the whole thing and then started over, because what you say, I talk to my audience a lot, and I say, when I hear something and it resonates, it's like, I know that to be true. I just know it. And then you become real attentive and start bringing that aspect into your own life, quality of life, and learning. So I loved every second of that book, and there's no filler. There's no flabby filler. You know, it's like step by step. It's exactly. So if you get this book, Al Olson's book, oh gosh, you're not going to be sorry. All of the things I'm going to be saying today, as far as the book, the classes, all of that, the links are going to be below in the show notes. Al is really available, more so than anybody I've ever met in this industry. Open door policy. And if you're struggling either with grief, he's a master of mediumship. You had spent time at Arthur Findlay in the UK, and you must have been back more than once.
No, I've only been able to make it one time. I only had enough air mile points or Avion points to go one time. So,
oh my God.
Well, you know, at the time that was very transformative for me, and I met all kinds of wonderful people and that sort of thing. But I think in this business, you know, spirit never lets you sit still for very long. So it wasn't long before whatever I was into next, I didn't really need to go back to Arthur Findlay to do it again. So I haven't been back, but maybe one day.
See, and that's the thing I tell my friends, and if I'm teaching, is that spirit talks to us through our experiences, through our history. And so that the Arthur Findlay experience which is an incredible school of discipline for all types of mediumship, from trance to evidentiary to a whole lot of things. It offers a lot, but it is restricted a bit because it's the UK. And so visiting there must have been, you know, a lot of a lot of arrows in your quiver, but to move that history into what you're doing now is fantastic. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you so you
Okay.
can, because you have a deep message. You're changing your style now, and I want to be the first to tell the world about this. So here you go,
Okay.
my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah. It's been a beautiful friendship, and I really appreciate you, and I appreciate all the other friends that I've met through this journey. Um, well, I guess if I were to say one thing that the one message I want to send to anybody that's actually listening is that there is no one right way to do mediumship or be an intuitive or a psychic reading or whatever. I think the first part of your journey is to figure out, try as many things as you possibly can and see what works for you. And then don't allow anyone to put limitations on you. So at the time, Arthur Findlay College was incredible for me as a beginner or an intermediate or whatever I was when I started there. It gave me a great deal of confidence that I could do it and all that sort of thing. But as I went on to become a teacher of all things intuitive or to be, a professional, I realized very quickly that in the end, you have to do what's right for you. So if someone says to you, "Oh, you can't do mediumship with your eyes open," I say, "Well, maybe they can't do mediumship with their eyes open." Or perhaps they'll say, "Oh, you have to have your eyes open to maintain contact with your audience, so you can't do it with your eyes closed." And I say to you, "Well, if you're clairsentient, then you're pretty much going to want to close your eyes because you want to sense what's going on and feel it rather than have the visual stimulus of it." So just do what's best for you. Try everything. Don't let anyone tell you can't do this, you can't do that. I haven't found anything yet I couldn't do. So that's my basic message. It really started with a belief in the afterlife. I don't think you can actually be a psychic or a medium if you don't believe in an afterlife. So for me, that happened through a wonderful book called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. And once I read that, then suddenly everything opened up and it was just came in an incredible rush. So I guess what I'm saying is that to start with, that was sort of my journey. But now I try to open myself up to spirit as much as possible. And I try to say, okay, how can I best help people with my gifts? And I very rarely charge for any of my services other than to maybe break even on a website or something. But it's not about that for me. But I do want to say that I really feel recently that spirit has shifted my attention away from mediumship. Not that I'd be happy to help anybody with mediumship if they want to talk about it. But really, I want to focus on people that are grieving over lost loved ones. And I've done thousands of readings and met and talked to thousands of people. And it always seems to me that it comes down to they want to maintain contact with their loved ones and don't know how to do that. And so I really started to become interested in the area of signs from spirit. And what I mean by signs from spirit is, for example, I'll use my mother-in-law as an example. When her husband died, her world was shaken because they were soulmates and they did everything together. And suddenly she was alone and really struggling through the different stages of grief. And I was talking to her about it one day, and she said, Al, I'm seeing dimes all over the place, in most crazy places. I'll look and there's a dime. And I said to her, well, I'm sure that's a sign from your husband, Bernie. I'm sure that's a sign from him. And she said, well, why dimes? Why this or why that? And it's like, I don't know the answer to that question, but I do realize that he's somehow figured out how to talk to you through the use of signs or symbols. And so I became quite fascinated with that. And I was an administrator on several Facebook groups, Mediumship 101 and a few others. And I just sort of put it out to the people in our groups and my contacts and that sort of thing. Have you encountered clients or people, friends, family that have encountered signs from spirit? And if so, what are they? And I got this huge list of like about 200 different ways that people could get signs or messages from loved ones. And I kind of narrowed it down to about the top 76 or 72 of them and started to focus on those particular ones. And I created an oracle deck based, I call it Signs from Spirit. Looks like this on the outside here. And it has all the pictures of those different 76 symbols that are in here. And I started playing with that. So when I was doing mediumship readings, I'd often pull a card for somebody. And I was surprised that when I pulled a card, for example, if I pulled a wolf, I'd be surprised someone would say, well, that's really funny that you would say that. And of course, when someone says to you, that's really funny, or you'll never believe this, or the hairs on your arms start to stand up, at least for me, or you get goosebumps, then you know, okay, we've hit on something here. And they'll say, it's really funny, Al, but I've been seeing wolves all over the place. And so I don't know how that connection works, if spirit somehow manipulates that, much like it would a tarot card or a different oracle card for a psychic to help them give a message. But in this case, it was more than a coincidence how many times people would be able to relate to the card that we picked. And up until then, they haven't really been aware that they'd even been getting messages. Debra?
I wanted to chime in. Thank you. I wanted to chime in here because that oracle deck that you have is available for sale. For now, it's a prototype kind of thing where there's no big book in it, which I love, actually.
Absolutely. Or even for an individual, let's say they're not a medium or a psychic, if they pull a card and they're suddenly looking for it, it's amazing how often they can almost immediately interpret what the sign that's coming through is based on their experience with wolves, or the instances where they had experiences with their deceased loved one and a wolf or whatever. And the deck reminds me a lot of how I would do a psychic reading. So whatever deck I was using, I never would ever read the little book that came with it, because then I would feel like it's just a memorization exercise. Whereas if you pull a card, let's say you get a fool or whatever, it's different sense you get for every person that you're reading it for.
Sure.
So the messages are infinite. And in a way, this deck is kind of like that too. What I did find, which was really surprising, there's two surprising things about this that caught me off. So I've been playing with it for a couple of years now. One is that it's really quite easy to use the deck if you're going to get a message coming from this way. But I've also had people say, I haven't been able to get a message and I really want to connect with my loved one. How can I do that? And so I'd often hold the deck out to them and say, okay, well, let's say a little prayer here. Divine spirits, please help us connect with our loved ones here. Please help them to send a message and a sign that we can look for. And then I would start going through the deck, turn it up and say, tell me when to stop. And they would say, oh, stop, or whatever. And in this case, they pull, let's say, a pelican card. And it's like, okay, so here's the deal. Sometime very soon, and I don't know how long that be. It might be today, it might be weeks, might be next month or whatever. You're going to really start to notice pelicans in your life. And that may be real life pelicans, but it may be a book about pelicans. It may be a commercial on TV. It may be a picture or a story, but who knows? But somehow your attention is going to be drawn to a pelican. And that will be a sign from your loved one that they're getting a hold of you.
Oh, I love that.
And you'd be, it never ceased to amaze me that people would be writing me a day, 2 days, a week later. Oh my God, I got nothing but pelicans around. There was a pelican landing on my deck yesterday and wouldn't leave, and that sort of thing. People ask me, how does that work? I go, I don't know how it works. I just know it works. So I think it's probably different for each person that draws the card. And the signs will be different too, depending what, much as mediums, if we're clairvoyant or clairaudient or whatever, we have different skills. I think those messages come whatever way your spirit loved one communicates best, or that you receive best, or that fits between you. So that's really cool. But the other really amazing thing of this deck, so I'm sure there's going to be some psychics and mediums who are watching this, is that I always am going through an experimental stage, but for a while I was doing stand-up mediumship in front of audiences, and I was using cards as part of the reading. And my feeling was that once I opened myself up to give a message, that anything that I see after that, or experience or whatever, is coming through from spirit. So I thought, well, why wouldn't that apply to card deck as well? And I remember I was in a session in front of an audience like that. It was sort of a spirit night, and there were several of us giving messages. And I had a really hard time connecting, which is unusual for me, but I really had a hard time. And usually I can piggyback on other people's readings and help them out and that sort of thing. But this particular day, I was drawing a blank. And so I closed my eyes and I just said, oh, help me here. I can't make anything. And I heard very clearly from Spirit, go get your cards. So, okay. So I went and got a card. I think it was a chakra deck or something. And I pulled the card out of there, and lo and behold, it tied right in with the reading that was being given at that moment. And I was able to piggyback on that. And then when it was my turn to stand up, you got to trust that Spirit's going to help you, and you go with what you get. So draw a card and away we go. And so I quickly shifted from that deck to this beautiful oracle deck. So I was recently doing another mediumship night for a local indigenous band here that had a lot of grieving going on. And again, I was, a couple other people started, and then it was my turn. I was like, you know what? This is not a traditional situation here. We have to try something different. And again, it was like, use your spirit deck. So I did that, and I pulled the fox card up. And this is how I started my reading was, is there anybody here that knows anyone in spirit that's deeply connected to a fox? Or does fox mean anything to anybody in here? And it was sort of your first bit of evidence. And this lady said, well, my granddad was called the silver fox. Okay, and away we went. And then her grandfather came in loud and clear, and we gave a sort of a very traditional reading, but it was such a wonderful way to sort of start or break the ice. And it was very non-traditional. I'm sure at Arthur Finley, they would be rolling over the grave if they heard me talking about this, but that worked for me, and it worked for that particular audience, and it may work for you too. So I started to incorporate it in my readings. And even sometimes if we were doing a group reading or whatever, we'd start pulling the cards, and then people start making connections or get additional evidence or influence the message that you're giving or whatever. So it seems to me, this is, for me anyways, a magical deck. I don't know. It may be like that for you. It may not have any resonance whatsoever. But give it a try, see if you like it. Or, if you have questions about it, contact me later. I'll be glad to talk to you about how to use it or different ideas. So that's basically where we're going. I'm trying to create a really nice book that goes with this deck and get it published somewhere. And it's a strange journey when you're trying to create an oracle deck and you can't draw stick people. So if we play Pictionary in the family, my drawings are very stickman-like or very rudimentary, or all my animals look the same. Like I'm not able to draw very well at all. So I thought, well, how am I going to do this? And so I approached everybody, put it out for about 6 months. Anybody want to be an illustrator for a deck? Blah, 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 blah. And contact people and get turned down. So I just went back to Spirit. Well, I can't get anybody to draw this. And then suddenly I had an epiphany. It was like, well, let's figure out another way to do it. So I thought, okay, I know I need these 78 cards of all the signs that we've heard about. So I went to a free, royalty-free picture site called Pexels. And I did a search for foxes, and there's like all these people who are happy to let you use their photos for recognition or just out of the kindness of their heart. And I downloaded 2 or 3 that sort of spoke to me when I saw them. A picture of a fox or a wolf or a spider, for example. Here's the picture of a spider. But when you download it from Pexels, it's a real photo. This was a real photo of a spider. And I thought, well, most oracle decks that I've seen, that's not particularly attractive. So then I stumbled upon one of these kids apps. As a school teacher, kids are always playing with different apps or whatever, especially teenagers. And one of my teenage nieces showed me this app where you could take a picture and turn it into a painting or all kinds of different themes. So the one I used was called Artisto, and you could put in a picture like this spider, and then you had 7 or 8 or 10 different choices of how it came out. It could be a graphic drawing, but in this case, it turned it into this beautiful painting like of a spider. So now suddenly I was the world's greatest artist, because it wasn't my work, but it was other people's beautiful photos, the professionals that they had taken. I'm willing to share, and this wonderful app that allows you to change it into paintings, in this case, cards. So that was really fortunate part of the journey to play around with that. So what I'm saying to you is, if you have an idea about a deck card or a book or anything, whatever Spirit's leading you, whatever your forte is, there are no boundaries. Like Spirit will find a way to help you accomplish what they want you to do. At least that's my belief of the whole matter. I don't know how anybody gets an idea, or how a writer or an artist gets inspired. I mean, in the ancient Greek days, right, you'd have your own muse, whatever that was. But for me, it was just, okay, look, there's a need here. Because when I was doing a lot of psychic and mediumship readings, I would, go to a psychic fair and I'd be doing all psychic readings all afternoon or whatever. And then I'd be communicating with people, and it's like, they would tell me about a sign or something, and I was like, man, I wish I knew more about that, or I wish I knew what that meant, or what the symbolism of it was. And so then I thought, oh, somebody's got written a book on it. Somebody has to have a deck of cards, but there wasn't one. So then it's like, okay, I really need this at the moment. That's what I really wanted in my practice. So it's like, oh, let's just create it then. And then that was about a 6-month journey to figure that out, and then a bit more time to play around with it to get it right. For you, I'm sure if this is your calling, I don't know what it'll be, but I'm sure it'll be fantastic. And I've found that if you go with it at the right intention. So if I had gone at this hoping to become a millionaire or really financially successful, I don't think I would have ever been inspired to do it. But if your motivation for it is to help people, then somehow it seems, at least for me, and it's probably different for everybody, but for me, it flows a lot easier when you're doing it for the greater good.
Knowledge base. I mean, it's like a full circle. You are like a cavern of information. So
yeah, a lifelong learner, I guess. I know, there's been a few times in my life where that sort of happened, is that you get into something, even writing the book that I wrote, you rewrite it so many times over the period of a year that a year later, it's like, I'm not even here anymore. Like, I'm completing this. I hope it's valuable to somebody. But, when I started, there was a whole lot of learning and all that. But the hours and hours at the end of editing over and over again, it's like, oh, God.
That is the whole deal about doing a book. I've written a few, and you have the momentum in the beginning, and then I think it takes so long to do it that by the time you get to the end of the book, you're not even the same person that you were when you
exactly.
started
or I'm already keen to go on the next one, So I guess that's what I would say to people is, even on your intuitive journey, whether you're a healer or a psychic or a medium or a count, I don't know, whatever you do, angels expert, just go with what you got at the moment. It's going to change. Your journey is not going to be static. You're never going to get to a point, I don't think, where you go, okay, that's it. If you do, you'll probably quit because it'll be too boring at that point. But I think you keep pushing the boundaries, you keep expanding. And the way to do that, I think, is just, you got to talk to people or figure out, okay, how can I help them,
Absolutely. Well, and we reap the benefits of your curiosity-driven life. Because you are so generous. I mean, if anyone has trouble in any one situation, or they get stumped and they need to have someone outside of their tribe to help them, you are the guy. You're the man, or any of the people that are in your group. And I did have this, the development circles that are here, psychicbookings.com.
Once I got past a certain level in my own development, when you start to reach out and become a mentor or help other people, it really started when I created an online development circle. And I used to run it every Wednesday. And I did that for, 4 or 5 years. And you would come across all kinds of people and listen to all kinds of horrific stories about their journey so far, or all the wonderful experiences they've had so far. And you come to a few conclusions. One is that everybody's different and everybody's journey is different. So if you're starting out, my words of advice to you is, okay, not only try everything, but try until you find the right group of people. You need a support group. So somewhere out there is a circle or a support group, whatever they call themselves, a developmental group, that is perfect for you, and that they'll understand where you are. Because in our professions, you don't always have home support. So a lot of times the people that I would run into would say, I'm having a really hard time because my husband and family think I'm crazy, and they shut me down every time I start something. And if you're in that sort of a situation, then you have to find your support somewhere else. Now, fortunately for me, my soulmate is beautiful and supports me and actually helps me think straight a lot. But a lot of people, when you're starting out, you don't, you're available at different times and that sort of thing. And so let me just share with you here this psychic booking site. So I thought in the end, I was getting so many people that I just couldn't find the time to help everyone. And I thought, okay, well, there's a couple things going on here. And I need to figure out some way of helping both practitioners and as well as people who are just starting out. So if I share my screen, I created a little organization called the International Guild of Intuitives. I don't know if it's actually a guild or whatever, but anyways, it's a collection of people that I've met along my journey. And so if you go to the site, the first page you'll see is it has the days of the week. So this is for, I don't know, this coming week, I guess, or late. This is October schedule from the 25th to the 1st of November. And you can see here that each of these different colored ones is a different circle that you can go with and sign up with. And some of them are intermediate and some are beginners and or whatever. So if you're starting out and you're looking for a support circle, come to this site. It doesn't cost you anything. No one's going to charge you anything here. This is not a thing to trap you or anything like that. It's just seriously a support system here, and find the people here that you really like working with. So this is my former circle here. My good friend Margaret's taken over and running this. She's from Denmark, but it shows you the different time zones around the world where you can talk to her. There's a place where you can sign up, and the links and everything will be sent to you. And this one here is, they're all really good groups. You just have to figure out which one is best for you. That's basically psychicbookings.com. If you're starting, you're looking for support because you need support, find the people that are right for you. Find your tribe, right? Everybody's different. Everybody's a different learner. All the teachers are different. Some are prescriptive and some aren't, and some accept you where you are, or some are great at whatever. But you have to figure out what you need. Some people really need a prescriptive mentor, and others need one that just sort of encourages their creativity. In the end, you find the one that you match, and you go and you work with them.
Question about signs.
Okay.
So, the 333, 222, 111.
Angel number? Yeah.
Yep, the angel numbers. Now, for the longest time, I would see it on a bumper sticker or something and say, oh, 222. Now, what did that mean? I don't have a book with me or anything. Also, what if I was on the beach and I saw a group of pelicans, and my mind's eye drew right out to those pelicans. Yeah. What do I do once I notice something?
I'll tell you what I do. And again, it's probably different. You might have to play with it a little while to figure out exactly what your best route is. But at the moment, even if somebody else approaches me and says, I've seen these sort of signs, if it's me and all of a sudden there's a squirrel that's on my deck that just won't go away and keeps staring me in the eye and clucking at me or whatever, it's something that's like, man, that's just weird, right? That has to be a sign. And if you're really one of the lucky ones, you'll know instantly who it is. If you're not sure who it is, then I usually just close my eyes and ask for who it is. And then the first person I think of, or the first person I see or hear, or the next person that comes up in my life that's deceased, someone brings it up in a conversation, like there'll be some sort of synchrodestiny that'll allow you to know who it is. But typically for me, and I don't know if this works for you, you got to put your logical mind aside, first of all, anytime you're doing anything intuitive. And so you just have to close your mind and trust the fact that, okay, whatever pops in my head, this is coming directly from spirit. And you'll have a spirit guide that helps you, or that particular deceased loved one will come through strong enough that you'll know immediately who it is. Now, if you've just lost your soulmate, you almost immediately know that's going to be your soulmate. And let me just say one thing about this. So if you have somebody who's just recently died, like within a week of their death, the chances of getting signs during that first little period is extremely high. And you have, even though you're grieving and you're worried about a million different things, and if you really want to hear from them, you have to sort of open up to whatever's coming, because you don't know what it's going to be. It may be a dream. It may be a gust of wind. It may be the sense of someone touching you on the shoulder. It may be an animal, maybe a bird, maybe a feather, maybe a coin. I don't know. There's too many, but what'll happen is something's going to draw your attention. And then almost always that message, that very first message is, regardless of what you believe about the afterlife or what your partner or loved one believed about the afterlife, that message 99% of the time that I've ever given these messages is, I made my transition. I'm in a beautiful spot. I don't want you to be bad or guilty or hurt or whatever. And when I give that reading to people, I almost would say, well, what would you say to your partner if you were on the other side? Would you want them sad and depressed and feeling guilty? No, you would want to reassure them that you're still there, that you're still a part of their life. And what I believe happens, and based on my experience and whatnot, is that after that initial period, when souls or spirits cross over, they immediately meet all the loved ones on the other side. And it's like they have this huge party on the other side, a welcoming party, if you like. Welcome home party, maybe is the best way to look at it. But very quickly, within the first week of our time or so, it's different for each one, they really, I believe, they go with their main spirit guide and do a review of this past life. So I believe we all come in here for a reason, that we have different goals that we're working on, and we've chosen the life we've come in. We don't know that, we don't remember that, and that's part of the journey, but that's what I believe. And then after you die and you sort of return to the other side and met with the ones that you've missed, that you go off and you reflect on your life. And during that time, you decide, okay, what goals am I going to work on now, and what do I have to do in order to do that? So, for example, I was talking about my mother-in-law. Well, when you're the only medium and psychic in the family, I must have, every time we met with family, it was like, have you heard from Bernie lately? It's like, well, I heard from him the first few days after he died. And here's the messages, right? Or these are the signs that we got. Phase lights were flickering. She found coins, dimes all over the place. But I haven't heard anything from him since. And they'll look at you like, okay, are you pulling our chain? Are you a fake? Are you whatever? My experience is that I believe that during that time where there's this no communication, is that they are doing their past life review. And so for my father-in-law, I didn't hear anything for almost a year. And then suddenly he started to show up in coming to me or giving messages or during readings, or I don't know, whenever he needed to say something, basically. And then it's sort of been a fluid conversation after that. So if you're the grieving wife, his wife, for example, that initial contact is so important to let them know they're okay. They're going to be gone for a little bit, but then they'll be back, and then they'll always be there. There'll be a part of them always with you. And so I think that the signs are really the key to that. And it's really important to get those ones. Now, later on, she gets all kinds of messages from him, but now they're more specific. So it's not just, oh, I've passed and everything's good. Now it's like, this coin or that maybe, or this particular bird might symbolize children or whatever. And it's like, okay, he wants you to, there's somebody needs help, right? One of your children or grandchildren or something like that. But that's a different story, is reading the messages later on.
Well, the messages later on, would it be, she finds a coin and she's been thinking about her grandkids, and the coin just says, check in with them?
Right. So much like so if it was me, or let's say I was doing a reading for them, okay, but typically if it's me, I see something, let's say for my mom who's been passed for 20 years or whatever, and I almost always know immediately what she's talking about, because it's something that's bothering me at the moment. Usually she's chipping in to give me some guidance, right? Yeah. But if I can't figure that out, or if it's for someone else, again, I close my eyes, right? And I just ask, okay, what's this about? And then usually the first thing that comes to your head, okay, that's what it's about. Yeah. And it's kind of a strange way of looking at it, but it really isn't that complicated if you just allow yourself to open to it and then trust what you're getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I did some, I have a couple of videos on near-death experiences, and both John Davis and Vincent Tolman, they were guided by their guides. They were met by their guides in the family. Everything you just said is in there. And so those are wonderful videos. But also, I have this thought, and I'd like to run it past you. When we think of signs, and we think, oh, a chipmunk a squirrel on my patio, what's that all about? Or then butterflies, hummingbirds, fireflies, or dragonflies. I believe, now I'm just going to ask you if this sounds right. I believe that in spirit, we learn as we go how to influence our other life on earth. It's not like they're stuck on earth, or they haven't ascended. It's just that they want to get your attention. And it's quite easy to move a butterfly towards you, or a hummingbird really close to your eye. It's really easy to influence that, I believe. And that's why it's small animals, or it's chance things, because they can synchronize a coin on the ground. It's really easy to have someone reach in their pocket and slip out a coin on the way somewhere, and then you come upon it. How do you feel about that theory? I've never said anything like that before. What do you feel?
Well, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, we don't know for sure, right? But my experience would lead me to guess that, again, it goes back to this main theme that we're all quite different. So
Yes.
the person, your loved one, has passed on. They may be a young soul, they may be an old soul, they may have a lot more experience from past lives or whatever of
Yeah.
talking and communicating. So they may have a bigger variety of ways of communicating with you. It's kind of like, okay, so as a medium, you're clairvoyant, you're clairaudient. You see things, you hear things, you feel things, you taste things, whatever, to get your messages. I believe that the spirits are like that too. Some things are certainly easier for them. So when you kind of group these cards, right, there's people that, or maybe they were particularly empathic souls, so it's easier for them to, connect or have a energy with animals because they're sympathetic to that sort of life source or whatever. Others manipulate electricity or electronic devices, so you get these weird text messages from nowhere, or you pocket dial, or something happens that just draws your attention. It's like, oh, that's really weird, right? But perhaps they're better at that, or they can flick lights or whatever, or they just know that that's what's going to draw your attention. So maybe you're the empath and you're looking at animals and connecting with them all the time, so they use animals. Or maybe, you are the one who noticed animals are animals to you, but you notice, your car windows are down or something that's really bizarre when you had left it locked. And it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
So it
Right.
depends what you might notice. I think that they're all different. I think they're all at different levels, and some are great. It's kind of like you and I. So you and I are good talkers, right? From my emails, I'm not a good writer in terms of communicating, but I'm much better at talking. And it could be the same with them. They may be particularly good at one way of doing it and not so good at another.
And if you don't know where to start, here is Al's
email address. Al from Canada. Yeah,
Al
that's right.
Canada.
That's me.
That's great.
Please don't hesitate to write. I just told you I'm a better talker than I am a writer, but I will get back to you eventually. I promise, and try to help you in any way that I can.
So yeah,
I guess, how can you support me? Listen, you could follow me on Facebook. That would be great. You could, when you email me here and say you want to be on my email list, so when I send stuff out wherever I am on my journey, that you get a copy of it, that would be great. You could write a review of my book on Amazon. That would be great. That's how you could help me. I don't need money. I don't need anything other than that. But if you could tell friends or spread the word, it's a grassroots kind of movement. So if you found this useful, that's great. Then share it. If you thought I'm just crazy and off the wall, then forget about me. That's good too.
This has been fun.
Debra, what you're doing here is really a great thing, and I wish you all the best in it. And
thank you.
Make this world a better place, right? Now, let me just one last thing I want to say, just as a caveat. Good. If you write to me on a Thursday or a Friday, I'm probably not going to get back to you till the next Monday, because we have a 3-year-old granddaughter and a 2-year-old grandson. I've been spending most of my days babysitting, 3 or 4 days a week, which is no better thing you could do in the world. But if I'm busy with them, chasing them around, I'm not answering emails. So just so you know.
I don't blame you. Quality time. Quality time. That's wonderful. Are they talking about their past lives? How old are they?
Well, my granddaughter is 3 and our grandson's 2. So he's just starting to communicate. But with my granddaughter, she is showing signs, I guess what you would call being an indigo child or having intuitive gifts. And I think there's things you can do. Like maybe this is another book or another thing I'll go off on pretty soon. But there's things that you can do. So, for example, if one of our cell phones rings before we answer, who do you think it is, Georgia?
Oh.
And then see who she said. Oh, it's mommy or whoever or whatever.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we're watching baseball or football games. Who do you think? Which team do you think is going to win, Georgia? The red team or the white team? Or we go to an elevator because we're in a condo and there's 2 of them. Which one's going to open? You know. So and then
I love that.
You know, so just to get a feel for it, and it's really kind of strange because she lives right near the oldest graveyard in Victoria. So we often walk through there, and we have these. She's only 3, but we have these great discussions about death and what happens afterwards. And
yeah. Oh wow.
And
cool.
it's like, you know, she's drawn to certain graves to go. Why did you go to this one? You know, just talk about it. And she's trying to get the concept of death in her head. So you keep trying to say, well, yeah, someday Papa will die, but you know, I'll still be here. Don't you worry.
Right. Oh, right. Behind the scenes. You know, it's interesting you should say that. I do have a little story. When I was in my channeling group, and one of the ladies in the circle had a child just like your grandchild, and they lived in a place that's quite beautiful in Seattle. They had a view of the water, and there's ferry boats, the big ones, the big ferry boats that go back and forth, and that's her vista. So her granddaughter came over and slept the night. She loved it. And then the granddaughter came down in the morning and said to her Marty, her grandmother, I was riding on one of those. And she pointed to the ferry. And she and Marty knew that she had never been on a ferry, inside a ferry. She didn't see a TV show about ferries. It was just that boat. And so Marty did really well. She said, what was happening on that boat? And she explained kids running up and down. There was a place to buy food. Men were listening, women were reading newspapers. There were cars down, just to the T. But then she blew it. Marty blew it. She said, how did you get there? And it broke the information. That's where she couldn't reconcile that.
Yeah.
So when you're talking, just make sure you don't ask them how they do it.
I would just say, wow, that's fantastic. That's like obviously showing some signs of remote viewing or life experience or something going on there, right? So it's like, oh, that's really cool. Marty, it's kind of like, you know, you talk to people about signs, and I'll get people say to me, oh my God, there's an evil spirit knocking on my door. I go, oh, first of all, I've never met an evil spirit, but okay. So then it's like, well, what would you do, Al? I'd go and go, hi, how are you? Who are you? What do you want? Let's go. Come on in. This is so cool.
Yeah, come on in.
You know, but I think it's, again, sort of your attitude towards things. If you see that as an exciting event, then that's a whole lot easier. And if you portray that to your grandkids, hey, there's nothing wrong with ghosts. You know, that's really cool. So
yeah, we got them around. Got them around a lot. Yeah, that's the fun of it all. Oh, Albert Olson, thank you for spending all this time with us and teaching us.
Thank you.
All of his, how to get a hold of him is down below in the show notes. I'm going to talk him into coming back again. So we could,
anytime,
on a live,
happy to.
Live, so we get questions and stories coming through. That would be so fun.
Yep.
And until next time, and if it's not on a Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, I hope to hear from you again. So, all right. And I'll let you know when this goes out.
All right,
I really
great.
appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Make a difference.
Isn't that wonderful? So I do have all the information to get a hold of Al in the show notes. Thumbs up this and share this interview to your friends and family. that might be grieving, or those who want to create a new career. And thank you for watching. I appreciate you all.